Hello and welcome to Confronting Injustice. I am your host, Linda Solomon. James Watson joins me as we discuss the injustices of the criminal legal system. Today our guest is Sean Ellis, the director of the Exonerated Network for the New England Innocent Project. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. There's so much that we can talk about. However, we'll try to kind of keep it within the confines of the Exonerated Network. Do you mind just introducing yourself again and telling us a little bit about you and what the Innocent Project, the Exonerated Network is?
So my name is Sean Ellis. I am born and raised in Boston. I spent 22 years in prison for a crime that I did not commit.
22 years.
22 years in prison. To be exact, it was 21 years, 7 months, and 29 days. I tend to round it out to 22 years.
Yes.
I was released in 2015. I just had my freedom anniversary, January 3rd. I've been home for 8 years doing this work.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay. Can you?
And so you asked about the Exonerated Network.
Yeah, what is Exonerated? But before you even do that, I think it's important for people to understand what it means to be exonerated. Can you just, for our audience, just let people know what that really means?
So to be clear, people tend to think that when somebody is released from prison, right, that they're automatically exonerated, right? When oftentimes they're within a space that we refer to as free but fighting, right? Meaning they've had their case overturned, but they're still fighting for their exoneration, okay? And exoneration doesn't come until either the Commonwealth decides that there isn't enough evidence to pursue the case forward, or the person is able to go to a trial, a jury trial, and have a jury find them not guilty for the crime that they were accused of. But in my situation, I was released in 2015. I wasn't exonerated until 2021.
Wow. And so being exonerated means then that the Commonwealth recognizes that they made a mistake.
So that's the tricky part. And from, depending on who you ask, it requires the Commonwealth to acknowledge a mistake. It requires the Commonwealth to require that there was some sort of harm done by the Commonwealth. But oftentimes that acknowledgement and those apologies don't come, right? So it really comes, exoneration really comes through the decision of the court. Depending on who you ask. Some says it comes through the Commonwealth, others say that it comes through the court. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the person who stands exonerated was once accused of a crime for which they did not commit. And once that's proven, once that's shown, the exoneration tag attaches, or the freed person tag attaches. Because there's different pathways to freedom once you've encountered the criminal legal system.
Interesting. Well, then I guess James should consider himself fortunate that Rachel Rawlins apologized to him and acknowledged the wrongfulness of what conviction.
And he is definitely among the fortunate ones in this community that was able to obtain an apology from the then sitting district attorney, no matter if it was the one that prosecuted the case or not. That really has little bearing on an apology coming from that office. However, right, when we understand that office sometimes harms people, right? Then we also understand that sometimes apologies aren't forthcoming.
Right. which is truly unfortunate, which is unfortunate. But the Exonerated Network, how did that come about?
So, as I shared, I was released from prison in 2015. Mm-hmm. Prior to my release, there was a gentleman named Victor Rosario, who was also an exoneree. He was released in 2014, and in my fighting for my freedom, for my release, my family and somebody that I was dealing with at the time had reached out and was able to connect with Victor Rosario and another exoneree named Mark Shan. He was in prison in Massachusetts and has since moved. But when my family reached out, he came back in support, and so. Ultimately, I was released. There was another gentleman named Ray Champagne that was released in 2020, right at the start of COVID, and we was having conversations about what we was experiencing upon our release. What we were experiencing in terms of the resources that was made available to us, not just the practical in terms of like Social Security and the things that we need to get ahead in life, but the internal turmoil that we were experiencing and trying to adjust and adapt to a whole new world. Never mind just adapt back into society, but a whole new world, right? And so we started to see, that there were things that we weren't being afforded and things that weren't available to us. And rather than just sit and complain about it, we began having conversations and doing work to develop something that was beneficial for the current community, but equally important for those who are coming after us, right? Because they're going to be the ones that need it the most. You know what I mean? Is by that time we had already been able to establish, ourselves in some sort of way, whether it was with a job or we were able to, secure a Social Security card or an NID. Like we had already got that, right? And had gone through the obstacles that were required, right? But the thing was to make sure that those coming after us didn't go through the same things that we went to the same level that we went through them at.
And it kind of speaks to the fact that you had many obstacles even getting a Social Security number or card, that kind of speaks to the fact that it wasn't easy to get what you needed when you got out.
No, correct. So fortunately for me, my family still had my Social Security card, but in talking with Victor and Ray and the others in this community, we began to learn of situations where people were being released from prison without no identification, right? Without no Social Security card, and because they were released from prison in the way that we were released from prison, which is different. It isn't often that people are released from prison in the way that we was released. So now the door's open and we're out here with no form of identification. It's an affront to public safety, right? And I would say even more importantly, it holds the person back, right? Even if it's for 1 second. It holds the person back from getting ahead and reclaiming their life back.
Absolutely.
Right, and we would think, want, and hope that at the point of release, right, from a wrongful conviction, that people in that are in position would want to do all that they can and all within their power to lend that kind of support to help people get ahead.
Right.
So what is actually being done to address that issue?
So, something that's being done. We have organizations like Confronting Injustice that's being supported. Organizations such as the Exonerated Network that's being supported as well. New Beginnings. Like these are organizations that have now stepped forward and taking on the responsibility to fill in the voids that were present and are addressing the inadequacies or like I said, the voids that were existing in the reentry space, and also just dealing with the harm that's being done by the criminal legal system.
Okay.
I think before we go on, I have to make this statement. If you've been incarcerated for any period of time, especially years, the system knows exactly who you are. So to be released without an identification is inhumane. It just doesn't make sense. It really, I can't even come up with the words for something like that. There are no shades of gray about who you are.
Right. And so we have to be careful because time is limited, right? Mm-hmm. But it would beg the question of, one, is the system operating as intended, mm-hmm. right? Because for two, like you just said, oftentimes people have been incarcerated for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? In the custody of a government agency, right? Who has their social security number, who is in partnership, if you will, who has connections with other agencies that has your fingerprints, the agency that took you to trial and handed you over in custody, and so you have these agencies that know who you are, right? And then and while you're in their custody, they provide you with an identification card that identifies you, right? You have a W number, right? W59259, and for others it's James might be a 4 number or a 3 number, right? Brother exonerated from off of death row, right? But it's the point is they're able to identify you while you're in their custody, right? And it's a government agency, and then to release you back into society, right? With no form of identification, and then for you to have to jump through hoops to get identification is truly appalling.
And so I guess that speaks to the value of the Exonerated Network, right? What you do, and I'm sorry, just to be clear, so the three of you got together, recognized that there was a need, and developed this Exonerated Network.
Correct. Yeah, and so we got together, and we engaged Lisa Kavanaugh in conversation along with Radha Natarajan, and kind of wanted their input, wanted their guidance, wanted to make sure that there was alignment with the work that was being done and how the work was being done. And so once those conversations happened and developed, we continued to do the work, and as people ended up being released from wrongful convictions and long-term confinement, we started to slowly be able to provide support. And the Exonerated Network is fairly a young program, right? But really having true impact. Just like our sibling organization, Confronting Injustice. And if I can, I want to acknowledge and lift up the work that you two are doing, which is a truly compelling work as we continue to shine light on what's going on with our criminal legal system.
Well, we appreciate that very much. The need is great. The needs are great.
Okay, since it's been established, how many, or not how many, because the numbers can vary, that have been successful in coming back into community?
So Fortunately, as far as the people that we've been able to work with, the exonerated network, no one has returned to prison, with the exception of our brother Pedro Valentin, who hopefully will be paroled soon. But his return to prison was through no fault of his own. It was through the perpetuation of harm that was being done by our criminal legal system. But in terms of the help that we've been able to provide, it's truly been effective and impactful.
Okay. On exception of Pedro Valentin, and since you've been doing this work, how many can you give us one, or how many successful stories have come out, men or women, that have been successful, integrated back into the community?
When you say integrating back into
the community, I mean, what have have they got jobs? Have they proceeded? Have they got their ID, their medical?
Yeah. So everyone that has come to us, whether it's been directly through the help and support of the exonerated network, or through working with other agencies, to my knowledge, everyone has either been able to obtain identification, or is still in the process of striving to obtain identification. But the thing with the work that we do, that we're finding out, and part of the problem that we're looking to highlight, is that there's a lot of bureaucracy, red tape, that's in the way, particularly of this group of people, that's returning back home. It is in a situation whereas someone has been tried, convicted, accepted guilt, and is returning back into society. In that situation, there are people who are hired by the Department of Correction that assist that person, right? But in a situation such as yours and mine, right, where the doors just open, those agencies, that type of support wasn't present when I came home, and it wasn't present when exonerated Dennis Mayers came home, and that's what really called for and compelled the creation of the exonerated network. Do you know what I mean? And it's still an organization that's as I mentioned, that's just fairly young and developing. But we're seeing some of the systemic problems and breakdowns that's creating the obstacles for predominantly Black and brown people, but all that's coming home from wrongful convictions and kind of keeping them back.
So what is the most obstacle, that you can put out now that a man or woman is going to face when they do come out? The most difficult.
The biggest,
yes,
I would say, is housing.
Housing.
The biggest obstacle that not just an exoneree is going to face. Okay, not just a free and fighting person is going to face. But I believe the biggest obstacle that anybody leaving prison is going to face is going to be housing. Right? I experienced a housing problem when I was released from prison. I had bail, okay? My family sought to get me housing. They sought to rent me a room in various locations, right? And for one reason or another, I wasn't accepted. Whether I didn't have no credit history. I was 19 years old when I was wrongfully arrested. Okay, you was 20, all right, and wasn't released until I was in my 40s. So what do you mean credit history? Okay, so I ended up sleeping in the bedroom of the pastor of my mom's church, and I'm truly grateful for that, because if it wasn't for that, there's a likelihood that I would have been in prison a day longer because I didn't have nowhere to go, right? That was my situation. But and there's other situations that I'm aware of. The reality is that when the majority of people are released from prison, they don't have housing, they don't have nowhere to go, and they're homeless. And so it just bleeds into the reality of mass incarceration.
Yes. And this just goes for not just the exoneree, but somebody who's done their time and has made and wants to make an effort to change, and to develop their life back into this community and with their families. They face the same obstacles as an exoneree. So let's not to forget them. If you did your time, you come out, you can be a productive citizen.
Absolutely.
And they face the same challenges as an exoneree.
Absolutely. They on the surface, I would totally agree that we all face similar challenges. But I think psychologically, to the degree in which trauma exists, there are some things that I think are a little bit different.
Well, it's interesting that Jabea Pope, I heard him say once, and he was just recently exonerated, men who are innocent do time differently than men who are guilty of what they were put in prison for. And that's what I hear you saying. There's a difference. Two other things. Pedro Valentin is very much a part of what we're doing here, and is at the foundation of the inspiration for confronting injustice. Even behind the walls, he's still supporting people and very much an advocate in support of other people. A question for you. I would like to have you tell us a little bit about the Injustice Among Us 7 Days of Truth activity. Yeah. And then maybe speak about how it is possible that you, James, people who were wrongfully convicted were treated in such inhumane ways for over a consistent period of time, can come out and be passionate about helping other people. What is that about? Where does that come from?
And so, if I can, I need to bring Ricky McGee, who is also known, and most especially known as Fuquan, into the space. Okay. He is a brother that I spent a lot of time with during my incarceration. Okay. And had a lot to do with my development. And so I just wanted to bring him into the space and kind of lift up the work that he's doing with the African American Coalition Committee in the Harriet Tubman Project. But the 7 days of Truth with Proof, which is going on in New Haven, Connecticut, is starting on June 12th through June 18th. And what our brothers and sisters in Connecticut are striving to do, and Connecticut is one of the regions within New England, right? And so they're related to us, yes, right? And so part of what they're trying to do is highlight the corruption and misconduct that's taking place over there in Connecticut. As I understand it, much like we have some rogue police officers here in Massachusetts, and particularly Suffolk County, they're experiencing the same thing in New Haven, Connecticut. And again, it isn't to say that all police are bad. It isn't to brush that broad brush, right? But I think that we all can agree that to the extent that one is engaging in official misconduct and wrongdoing, I think that we can all agree that they erode the very fabric of the criminal legal system, and that behavior needs to be highlighted. And so these 7 days of Truth with Proof is working to do just to highlight it with proof.
And we're headed to
New Haven, Connecticut.
To support.
Join us to support our brother Gaylord Zelters, Stefan, and the other exoneree and free men and women of New Haven, Connecticut. So, definitely tap in, and we would love to make you part of the caravan that's making a trip out there.
Wonderful. Now, very quickly, we have about 3 minutes left. So anyone who's interested in getting information about the Exonerated Network or this 7 Days of Truth with Proof, who would they contact? How would they get more information?
The way that I see it, they can reach out to the New England Innocent Project's website at www.newenglandinnocence.org. We also have social media, New England Innocence, Facebook and Instagram, as well as Exonerated Network on Facebook and Instagram. But also they can reach out to you, Linda,
Absolutely.
and you, James, as part of members and people as part of this, community. There's. I remember when we were in James, and there were people that were doing work on our behalf, but the people that were doing work on our behalf, for one reason or another, could not come together to do the work on our behalf. And I believe that we are the example of people that is doing similar work, that is coming together to do work on behalf of others that's being harmed by the criminal legal system. And so you can, whoever's looking to get involved with the 7 days of Truth with Proof can reach out to either one of you, or reach out to myself at newenglandinnocence.org.
Great.
It's a blessing for the attorneys that supported us and fought and believed in us.
Yeah, attorneys and
Barbara
community
Monroe,
people.
Maddie, John
Rosemary
Nosley,
Scapicio, Jason
Rosemary
McDonough,
Scapicio,
Absolutely.
Radha Natarajan,
Rada.
And it's nice that we
Lisa
can call
Kavanaugh,
out these- Absolutely.
like Amy Bellinger,
embraced us.
yes.
Well, let me just say this,
like
because we
this.
have 1 minute. And you didn't get to the question of, and it's a big question, how you can be passionate about helping others after dealing with so much inhumanity. So I guess that's a question for another time, because that's a serious question.
Yeah.
You have,
in
in 1 minute, because we have
to
to close
be
up.
respectful of time, right?
Yes.
That's something that I've definitely learned. But it's you have to have me back.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll start with that question. So thank you so much, Sean, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we thank the audience for watching Confronting Injustice. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And we definitely will have you come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.